There aren't many more majestic views than this. I'm looking up at the Coolins, and it's a dour November day, and the clouds are just tipping over the top of the mountains. There's snow up there, but not down here. And it's reminding me why I love the Isle of Skye and why I've come here on many occasions to escape from the world and to experience the genuine, rugged power of nature. I love to come here in the winter when you can have violent storms one day and then bright sunshine, when you can have snowfall, and when you're never far away from the sea. We've come here at this particular time for a particular reason, because all around us is happening the Shawl Festival of Small Halls. And what does that mean? It means effectively that some of Scotland's top traditional musicians come together to form a kind of folk supergroup, and they tour around the little village halls in the different communities on Skye over a 2-week period. And you'll recognise some of the names. Duncan Chisholm, who we walked with to Sandwood Bay on Folk on Foot. Donald Shaw, one of the big names from Capercaillie and a big mover and shaker in the Scottish folk scene. Sue R. Lee, the cellist, Jarlath Henderson, the pipe player, Rachel Newton, the harpist and singer, to name but a few. And they all come together, they rehearse for a couple of days, and then they set off on this odyssey around the island, bringing what they call big music to small halls. We've come right over to the west of Skye now, to the little community of Glendale. There's great excitement here because in the community hall behind me is going to be one of the concerts of this festival of small halls, with Duncan Chisholm, with Donald Shaw, with Innes Watson, with Sue R. Lee on the cello, and I can see some cups of tea being served inside. So let's go inside and see what's happening. Thank you. Hi there. We are recording, yes. We're recording an episode of Folk on Foot.
Oh, I thought you walk up a mountain to do that.
Oh no, we walk up mountains as well. We're doing a bit here as well. Lovely to see you. So it's the interval, and it's always a good time in an interval to catch up with an old friend of Folk on Foot. Here's Duncan Chisholm. How wonderful to see you, Duncan.
Oh, wonderful to see you.
I haven't seen you since Sandwood.
I know, and now we're in the West Highlands again.
Exactly.
In Glendale.
Just tell us a little bit about what this festival means to you.
Well, it's a multitude of things it means to me. It means that we get to wonderful small communities and small community halls like Glendale here. there's 9 of us here, creating new music and new arrangements to old tunes and all of that.
Are
Having
you
a
all
great
old
time.
friends, or have you ever played with each other before?
There's a few people I have never played with before, but we're all friends. So it's a very small community in the traditional scene in Scotland. It's very small, so we all know each other. But it's great to get the opportunity to do this in such a beautiful place and over a couple of weeks. It's very intensive. It's good.
And is this the smallest place that you do, or are there smaller halls than this?
Oh, they're smaller. We were here last year, and a lot of the halls, like Breakish Hall, Braes, they maybe hold about 50 people or something. But the wonderful thing about it is the community really gets behind it. So any visitor that comes in to the Small Halls Festival gets not only the music, but also the feeling, that sense of community and warmth.
Done any walking recently?
Lots of walking, yes. Not to Sandwood. I haven't been back to Sandwood since that wonderful day in March that I enjoyed so much. But I've done some walking today. We're staying at Sleagan Hotel, and you can go out the back. You can go straight to the foot of the Red Coolins. Yeah, absolutely wonderful scenery. Skye is just amazing. It's such a big island. I mean, I've been coming to Skye for 30, 40 years, and I'm still going to places that I've never been before. So it's wonderful.
It's great to see you again. We'll let you get back on stage.
Thank you
very much, Duncan. Thank you.
Shall I say hello? Let's all do it, right?
Hello! How are we? You good? Good. It's very nice to be back in the old inn in Carbost again. And lovely to be here playing some music for you all. I hope you can all hear us, at least the first half of the room.
And we've got Rachel Newton here on the harp.
Hey!
And then this is Jarlath Henderson on the pipes and the whistles. And we've got Megan Henderson on the fiddle and singing as well.
And over here on the keys we've got Hamish Napier.
What an extraordinary occasion that was at the old inn at Carbost. We all crammed into the pub to hear these amazing musicians, and you probably could hear there in the mix the sound of the harp played by Rachel Newton. And it's Rachel we're going to focus on in this episode of Folk on Foot, one of the new generation of interpreters of the Scottish tradition, a harpist, a fiddle player, a viola player, also a collaborator. She's in the band The Shee, the Furrow Collective, and she was part of the Lost Words Spell Songs project, which we featured in another episode of Folk on Foot. And we're going to go for a walk with Rachel in one of the best known parts of this island. Let's go and meet her. So, Rachel, good morning.
Good morning.
Here we are in Glenbrittle on the Isle of Skye on a November morning, and this is a spectacular spot.
It's breathtaking.
The mountains go up all round us with snow on the top, and the snow's kind of crisscrossed by the gaps in the rock.
Yeah, the patterns are beautiful.
They really are. And we're at the Fairy Pools, which is a famous spot on the Isle of Skye, where people go swimming in the water. How are you feeling?
I'm not 100%. Give it a go.
We can go for a walk. And the great thing is that you've brought your harp.
I have. I brought my harp with me. Yes.
It's a smallish harp. I mean, I was thinking that maybe it'd be like a concert harp, and we'd need a pantechnicon to get it here.
Yeah.
But which instrument have you brought?
So I've got my acoustic harp today. I've got an electric harp and an acoustic harp. And so yeah, this is my acoustic. I've had it for a very long time. And the Gaelic name for it is a clarsach. Traditionally, the clarsach would be wire strung and played with the fingernails. But it kind of, when it sort of made a bit of a comeback in the early 20th century, it kind of came back as a bit of a hybrid of the concert harp. So it's gut strung now, or nylon strung, and played with the pads of the fingers. But it has levers to change the key instead of pedals. That's what makes it different to a pedal harp.
What made you take up the harp in the first place?
I'm afraid it's not a very romantic story. I went to a Gaelic-speaking school, and in Edinburgh at the time, all of the schools had free tuition in instruments, and it was a different instrument for each school. And because I went to the Gaelic school, it was the clarsach was the instrument, so they were just there.
But did you realise then that you were setting yourself up for a lifetime of carrying really heavy things in really difficult circumstances?
Yeah, I didn't quite anticipate that, I don't think.
Are you happy to carry the harp a little bit down the track?
Yeah, absolutely,
here?
no bother.
Shall we move on down?
Let's go.
So tell me more about your education. Was it unusual to go to a Gaelic school in Edinburgh at that time?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think I didn't really appreciate how lucky and how unique my experience was, really, at school. Because, you know, growing up in a kind of inner city school, which was really multicultural, but then we also had this unit within the school of kind of the kids that spoke Gaelic, and a lot of their parents were from the Highlands and Islands, and we're all very close. So it's kind of like being in a little village school. You know, there's only 6 people in my year and things like that, but we were also had this really multicultural experience, and the school was great, and you know, we sang sort of Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell songs in assembly and things like that, but we also had the Gaelic choirs, and you know, so it was really, really unusual.
Sounds surprising. And were your parents Gaelic speakers?
Well, my dad's from near Edinburgh, and my mum's from a place called Achnaheard up near Achiltibui in Wester Ross, and her parents were both sort of native Gaelic speakers, so that was their first language, but they didn't speak Gaelic to their kids, and that was quite common, I think, especially in the mainland at that time. So yeah, so she was the eldest of 6, so she understood everything because they spoke Gaelic to each other, just not to the kids.
Right.
So she understands Gaelic completely and can speak it, but she doesn't really have the confidence to speak it, really. So yeah, that was partly the reason that they sent me to the Gaelic school, and also I think they just liked the idea of, you know, being bilingual and the kind of benefits that brings.
And were they musical, your parents?
Appreciators of music, I would say. Yeah, my mum's sort of family, that her brothers all play, but she was more of a reader than a player, but she actually set up the Feish in Edinburgh. Feish is kind of Gaelic for festival, and I grew up going to the Feish in Rossshire, in Ullapool and Gairloch with my cousins, and I had such a positive experience there. Yeah, my mum ended up setting one up in Edinburgh.
Right.
Which was great.
So it was a bringing together of musicians?
Yeah, it's like a sort of summer school, but you know, that sort of idea. So you'd go there for the week, it was residential, and you'd just hang out with your friends, kind of get to know other young people and just play music and learn from, fantastic musicians. So,
And so what sort of repertoire were you learning when you were starting out?
well, at the Fèis I would be learning tunes, traditional tunes or tunes that, the tutors had written. In school I was learning lots of Gaelic songs from nursery school, really, because that's what we were doing. We were singing all the time.
We've come up on a rock.
I know, it looks absolutely perfect.
Is it inviting? Would you like to sit on it and play the harp?
Yes, yeah. This is the most fairy-like I've ever felt.
Well, that would be fantastic. Let's get it out of the case. Yeah. Is that comfortable or not?
Yeah, I think it's all about the placing.
Yes.
Stunning.
It is quite an extraordinary
It's
backdrop.
amazing.
In the bowl of the mountains behind and the river coming down, and the landscape sort of unfolds around us. What a great place. What are you going to play?
I think I'll start off with an instrumental. It's actually a tune called Skye Air. And
Perfect.
Yeah, I thought it was appropriate. So it was collected. It's in this fantastic collection called the Patrick MacDonald Collection, which was sort of, I think it's from the 1700s. And he went around Skye kind of collecting sort of song melodies and pipe tune melodies. And I always say it's kind of nice because a lot of collections, they kind of try and tidy up the tunes and make them sound kind of, I don't know, more than what we'd be used to, kind of the right amount of bars and things in the sort of classical term, right in inverted commas. But they kind of keep it weird, which I like. So it kind of goes off on tangents you don't expect. And it's just a beautiful melody.
You mentioned your grandparents.
Yeah.
Just tell us a bit more about where they live.
I suppose that was another thing. I was very lucky when I was growing up because I kind of had this dual life where I sort of was growing up in Edinburgh in the city, and then every single school holiday that I had, I would go up to Achnaheard where my grandparents lived, and where I had 3 sets of aunties and uncles all around this tiny little sort of township of Achnaheard. If you come up to Ullapool and you keep going north as if you're going to Lochinver, and then you turn off onto a single track road for about, I don't know how many miles, you kind of feel like you're going to the ends of the earth, really. It's definitely not somewhere that you pass through. But yeah, if you kind of go towards Achildebuy, the Summer Isles, the area is called Coigach, and Coig is 5 in Gaelic, so it's sort of 5, I think, townships, I suppose, and Achnaheard is 1. So instead of going left to Achildebuy, you go right to Achnaheard, and there's a stunning beach there, really, really beautiful beach. And it looks onto the mountains, Stackpolly, Sullivan, of the sort of Ascent Mountains as well. And yeah.
Is it a landscape that's reminiscent of the one we're in now, the drama that we're seeing here?
Very similar, very dramatic. And, it's a view that, I suppose they feel like old friends. Those mountains, it's just such a kind of familiar view. Quite a few of my cousins a lot of them play the bagpipes, and my cousin Myrid Green is a well-known accordion player and piper, and there was always a lot of music kind of coming in and out of that house sort of growing up, especially Hogmanay was a big one. I used to kind
Bit of a party.
Yeah, it used to go on for 3 days sort of all around the clock.
And you went back there to record your album, West.
I did,
didn't you?
yeah.
Why did you do that?
I've done a few solo albums, and it was my 4th solo album, and when I came to do it, I decided that I wanted to make it a solo album, in the sense that it was really just me and the harps. Quite often you have solo albums and there's about 100 guests on them, which is lovely and really good fun as well, but I thought it would be nice to just kind of do something that was really stripped back, because I was doing quite a lot of solo gigs at the time, so people were asking me, have you got anything that's just you, and so I thought, that'd be a nice thing to do, and I suppose I just felt like it would be nice just to make sense of it for me. It would be nice to do such an album in a place that was kind of felt quite a personal meaning to me. And the house, my granny and grandpa's house, It's got a wee extension that they did in the 70s. I mean, I don't know how they did it. There were 6 kids and they did B&B and they only had about 2 bedrooms or something at the time, but they had this little extension, and my mum and dad actually stay there in the winter time now, and the main bit of the house is kind of self-catering. My uncle's got it. So it's quite it's changed a bit. You know, I kind of wanted it to stay exactly the same. But of
I'm guessing it's not big.
It's not a big house. No, it's not a big house. And I think I just felt like, just while I had the opportunity, it would just be really nice to make music in that space that had meant so much to me growing up and had such an impact on me, I suppose. And Matty Foles, who's recorded all of my albums, you know, I've recorded in his studio before, he came up and set
Brought
up
the studio with him.
Exactly, yeah. So we just sort of spent this amazing week there, and it was a stunning, really sunny, which isn't guaranteed.
Not always the case.
And the mountains just looked stunning, and what we would do is we would stand kind of outside for a bit, you know, have a cup of tea or whatever, and then just go in and record. You know, everything was just so informed by the space. And
how did you pick the music that you recorded?
I picked some songs that I really liked. It didn't all have to be... I was making up my own rules. So I decided it didn't have to all be kind of connected to that place specifically, but just some songs that I'd, like Skye Air actually, that I've been playing at gigs for years and just never kind of found a place for before. So things that had a bit more space, I suppose.
Would you sing one of the songs from the album for us now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll sing you a token. So this is actually, like I say, they weren't all necessarily the place, but this is actually a song from America. It's from the Ozark Mountains, but I suppose, yeah, it's a place that I've never been, but I kind of imagine that I might feel an affinity with it.
Raise the window, mother, darling, for no air can harm me now. Let the breath that blows in on me, for to cool my fevered brow. Death will soon relieve my sorrow, soon will cease this aching heart. Of a dying message, we must meet before we part. There is one you know him, mother, no one need not speak his name. You'll remember how he sought me, and with loving words he came. And you'll remember how I trusted, and my thoughts were all on him. Let's close the window, mother, darling, for my eyes are growing dim. Let's take this ring from off my finger, where he placed it long ago. Give it to him with a blessing, which in dying I bestow, and tell him it's a token, mother, of forgiveness and of peace. Tell him, hush, his voice I hear it, will his watching never cease? It's let I'll obey the summons to a fair and better land, where the hearts of none is broken, but will join a holy band. And when my troubles are all over, and you'll see me grieve no more, it's do not weep, but think me waiting for you on the other
Very emotional, very sad.
Yes, yeah, that's what a weepy one.
But it could, stylistically, it could have come from Scotland, couldn't
Oh
it?
yeah. I mean, a lot of these songs did, originally, and yeah, there's definitely an affinity there, I think, with the music of like South of America, North America, and yeah, there's a huge country and western appreciation in the Highlands and Islands,
Yeah,
and I
always wonder,
I always wonder if it's because of that that link that was made all those years ago.
And a lot of Scots went to America and,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
to Canada and so on, didn't they?
Yeah, and a lot of these songs went over, and of course, the language, the Gaelic language, went over, and I. Not that long ago was at the festival Celtic Colours over in Cape Breton in Canada, in Nova Scotia, and it was incredible just to go, and I went to a Gaelic song night there and was singing Gaelic songs with people there, and it was amazing. I even felt like I recognised people there. The faces were familiar to people that I knew from the Highlands and Islands, which was just incredible.
Well, and you've reflected the country and western vibe on your album by doing Jolene, the Dolly Parton song.
Yeah, because again, I'd always sort of done Jolene sort of, just for the crack, really, at gigs and things. And one of my uncles, while I was up there recording, it was no plan whatsoever to put it on the album at all. He came in, he's the postman up there, and he came in one day and he said, I hope you're putting Jolene on the album. And I thought, well, if my Uncle Ali wants me to do it, then I'll do it.
Your beauty is beyond compare, with flowing locks of auburn hair and ivory skin and eyes of emerald green. Your smile is like a breath of spring. Your voice is soft like summer rain, and I cannot compete with you, Jolene. Jolene, 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 Jolene. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Jolene, 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 Jolene. No, please don't take him just because you can. He talks about you in his sleep. There's nothing I can do to keep from crying when he calls your name, Jolene. And I can easily understand how you could easily take my man, but you don't know what he means to me, Jolene. Jolene, 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 Jolene. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Oh, please don't take him just because you can.
So we're here at the fairy pools on Skye, and fairy and that kind of folklore have been part of your music as well, haven't they? Because you did an album called Changeling.
I did, yeah. And Changeling started off as a New Voices commission for Celtic Connections. The festival, they do this fantastic series, New Voices, and it's sort of people get an opportunity to compose for a group of musicians, and then they're performed at Celtic Connections. You kind of have a theme. You need to have a theme for these things, and I was thinking of a theme, and
Listen to the waterfall.
Oh wow! Oh, it's a sudden.
So you're saying you have to have a theme, and Changeling was the theme, was it?
Yeah, and I've been working a lot with my friend and colleague Emily Portman. Her and I have always had a shared interest in the kind of otherworldly kind of stories that come along with folk music and traditional ballads and traditional songs. And we've had many conversations over the years about how I suppose these stories that people, and beliefs, that people had, really firm, solid beliefs about fairies and things like that, were often kind of to explain the unexplainable in people's lives, and things that were just happening to people, and they had these beautiful poetic explanations in the form of things like the fairies, the fairies were at fault and things like that. So the idea of the changeling, the baby that was replaced, that was stolen away by the fairies, and they replaced that baby with their own little changeling, I just
Where does
found
that story
really
come from? Where did you hear it first?
Well, gosh, I mean, it's one of those things, I think, with a lot of things for me, I think, and I suppose that's maybe, it makes me realise how lucky I am. All these things have just always been there, It's sort of just always heard about the changelings from
And where do
various
you think
people.
the changeling idea comes from? Is it to do with people explaining away the different characters in their family?
Yeah, I think so. And I would wondered whether maybe, if a baby was born with special needs or something like that, it might be a way of explaining something like that, And also there's a song that I did in the Changeling album, The Queen of Elfin's Nurse, which is a ballad, and that one was actually about the mother being stolen away. So the mother was stolen away for a time after she had the baby, and it was thought that her breast milk was good for the fairies, so the fairies took her away. And we were wondering whether that might be something, an explanation for maybe postnatal depression or something like that. All these sorts of life things that happen to people. It kind of, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense that people would have these kind of ideas about it.
Would you sing as a fairy song?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this actually it snuck onto the Changeling album, although it's not technically about changelings. It's a song called A Furrow Collective, and Pure is the Gaelic for sister, and it's actually the woman singing to her sister, saying that she's trapped on the Isle of Skye. So she's trapped by the fairies, and she's telling her sister about it. So I thought that might be a good one to do in the fairy pools. I just realised how appropriate that was, because the woman in the song she's talking about being trapped on this fairy hill, and she actually talks about the sound of the water of the mountain running down a mountain. So just suddenly as I was singing it, I was thinking, that's exactly what's happening here.
Perfect folk on foot moment.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until I was singing it.
That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much.
Let's cross over these stepping
Oh,
stones,
wow,
because that
yeah.
might be a bit tricky. A bit slippery. So the reason we're here, Rachel, is because you're taking part in this Small Halls Festival.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
It's brilliant. It's just so much fun. And, playing in these small halls.
The village halls.
The village halls, it's so lovely. And that's kind of the way that I started, really. My first gig was with the Achiltebú Céilí band or the Coigach Céilí band in Achiltebú Village Hall when I was probably about 6 or something. And I still, it's one of my favourite kinds of gigs to do is in a village hall, as acoustic as possible. And
I wonder if there's a bit of a party amongst the musicians, every evening. Do they?
Oh no, everyone's
let their
straight to
hair
bed.
down? They all go to
straight
bed about
after the
9:30.
Yeah. No, we've had a few fun nights already, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I'm kind of trying to pace myself.
I'm interested in how the touring life works for you, because it can be quite dislocating to spend, your life on the road and not feel that anywhere is really home. Is that a feeling that you have?
Definitely, yeah. Especially, in the last few years, I felt it more and more because I play in quite a few different bands. So I'm usually on tour with one or another, and it has felt quite kind of like, if you don't work in a particular place, then you can kind of live anywhere, which is a lovely thing in one way. But it does kind of make you really kind of have to make that conscious decision to kind of place yourself somewhere and try and bed into the community, but it's very difficult when you're away so much,
You mentioned the other bands that you're involved with, and I saw you in the Shee at King's Place in London as part of their Venus Unwrapped season, when you co-curated a weekend of music about women in folk. Are you worried that there aren't enough women getting prominence in the traditional scene?
It kind of all began a few years ago where I kind of flagged up a couple of things actually on social media. There was one incident with the Shee where we were told by a festival booker that he already had his girl band for that year and wouldn't be booking us.
No, I should imagine you were really angry, weren't you?
Well, I think that in a way the thing was that I was kind of not surprised, but I went online and sort of said, we've just had this, isn't it ridiculous that, it's still kind of a bit of a novelty to have an all-female act. And people kind of like, oh, name and shame, get kind of really angry. And I was like, well, it's not about that particular festival, it's about the kind of wider situation. That kind of sparked my thinking and sort of starting to think more and more about it, and just noticing more and more, if I was at a festival, how few women there were on the stage. It was kind of often, if there was a woman, a kind of female act, it would be a woman at the front singing and then a whole band of men,
So why do you think that imbalance happens?
It's a difficult question to answer. There's loads and loads of different reasons. I think the main one is just that it is going to take a bit of time for women to be equal in general. But also, I think within music, music has its own particular kind of issues, I suppose. I think the environment that we're often in the music scene, with the kind of late nights, drinking and all these things, and it's not always kind of conducive to equality. And
when you talk to other women of your generation who are now in the folk scene, what would they like to see change to make their lives better and to make their careers work better?
I think the overriding thing is this general attitude that is, sometimes it's really difficult to explain it, and that's why I always get tied up in knots trying to talk about it, because it's quite difficult to really put your finger on exactly what it is, but it can be quite a kind of, I suppose, a kind of amalgamation of lots of little things that kind of become a big thing. Like quite often you just almost expect to be underestimated. Like with the Shee, we often had people sort of, maybe like the sound engineer or whatever, be like, oh, you guys actually like, your music's really got balls. And then we'd often be like, yeah, well, we don't have balls actually. But yeah, and
so patronising comments.
Slightly, yeah, and just comments, small comments that all add up, and you just come up against it a lot, and even from people who probably do know better, but it's just almost just so inbuilt in us.
But just by raising the issue, there's a chance you might change the attitude just for unthinking men who might be sitting around with their unthinking prejudices, you at least make them think twice.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with traditional music and folk music, people kind of put it in a box on its own, and it's like, you can't criticise this music because it's so... We need to cherish it and we need to nourish it and protect it. And I suppose my argument would be that we need to treat it the same as any other music if we're going to kind of push it forward, and we need to ask the same questions as other music scenes would be asking. You know, I think people quite often say, oh, well, that doesn't apply to our scene, there's no problems here, but it's kind of like, well, if there's a problem in every other walk of life, then surely, surely there is with us. And I think it's made me kind of think wider as well, not just about women in music, but also, things like, I think class is a big issue. It's a very, very middle class sport, folk music, and also just looking out. I always think it's an interesting thing of this sort of a term of world music and folk music, and I don't know, I just feel like it could be a little bit more multicultural as well, and more accessible to a lot of different people. So that's kind of probably my next
that's your next challenge. You'd like to take things on. We've got the acoustic harp with us.
Yes.
When you have the electric harp, how does that change the music that you can make?
I initially got the electric harp when I was playing with the Shee, because there's 6 of us, and
you wanted to get heard.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. And because we've got quite an unusual lineup in that band, we don't have a guitarist, we don't have a bass player. I kind of ended up taking the role pretty much of the bass player, because that electric harp has got such a great bass, a really sort of powerful bass on it. That really, really informed the way that I play now. I'm much more about riffs and bass lines than I am about chords. And you have to play it quite differently because it's so resonant, and the notes just kind of keep getting louder. On the acoustic harp they die out eventually, but on the electric they just keep going. So you've got to really dampen the string, and it's much better if you do that in a rhythmic way, and then that can inform the rhythm. So that kind of became a whole new way of playing, and I think actually I play the acoustic harp more like that now as well, which is quite interesting. It's kind of just but I do treat them as quite different instruments.
So it's quite an attraction here, isn't it? There are quite a lot of people about today.
It's quite busy, isn't it?
Yeah, so we know that it's a place that a lot of tourists come to on Skye, and I don't think there is actually any fairy folklore.
No,
place.
I don't think there's any sort of traditional kind of kosher sort of fairy folklore here, but I think the idea of the fairy pools is a lovely one, though.
And the thing about it is that the reason it's so magical is because of the way the water winds through the landscape, and because of the sound of it too. So you keep coming across it and having to go across stepping stones like the ones we've just passed, and you can hear it's the noise, I think, of the water, the sound of the water, that gives you the image of magic in your mind.
It does, doesn't it? It's beautiful. It's very musical, actually. It's very rhythmic.
So will you sing one more song for us?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll sing this song that I recorded on a couple of albums ago. It's called Chai Mogonachig and Vine. My Duncan went to the hill and never returned. Chai Mogonachig and Vine. Chai Mogonachig and Vine. Chai Mogonachig and Vine. Skachi
Nie dogono cheye wam. Nie dogono cheye wam. Nie dogono cheye wam. No halmar hafay. She mogono cheye wam. She mogono cheye wam. She mogono cheye wam. Skachilie gachi. Von de chrie se chli. Von de chrie se chli. Volle chrie se chli. An een breedje brechten. Hij mag nog gaan wijn. Hij mag nog gaan wijn. Hij mag nog gaan wijn. Schatje, dagje.
Is there a strain of melancholy in Gaelic songs? Are you constantly finding yourself singing tragic stories?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I tend to go for those ones in Gaelic and in English as well. I think, often that's where the most interesting story is.
But do you have any happy ones?
I do, yeah. I suppose the Gaelic push-to-beel tradition, the mouth music, which is traditionally used for dancing, they're usually pretty happy, quite often not making a huge amount of sense, but they're usually pretty happy songs.
And you did one of those at the Old Inn, didn't you?
Yeah, so Megan and I did a kind of marathon set. So they're always sort of Strathspeys, reels, jigs, different kinds of dance tunes. And we did quite a few of them. Yeah, it was really good fun.
Rachel, thank you so much for walking with us and for sharing your extraordinary music with us in this beautiful landscape.
Oh, thank you. It's been a total pleasure. Thanks very much.
Rachel Newton walking and talking and playing on the Isle of Skye. And we took advantage of being here for the Small Halls Festival to record 2 bonus episodes with 2 other wonderful musicians who we met on the tour of the Small Halls on this beautiful island. So they're coming up very soon, so watch out for them. And if you want to hear about another project that Rachel was involved in, the Lost Words Spell Songs project, there's a special episode of Folk on Foot about that, featuring the singer, ukulele player Beth Porter and the artist Jackie Morris walking in Wales. Do have a listen to that, and have a listen to all the back catalogue of Folk on Foot with so many amazing artists and so many spectacular locations. We are going to make season 5. It'll be coming up in the summer, and we need your help to do it. We need your donations to help us keep making these glorious episodes of Folk on Foot. So please become a patron. All you have to do is go to our website at folkonfoot.com, click on the Support Us button, and follow the simple instructions. Your donations make this possible. Above all, thank you very much for listening to Folk on Foot. Stay tuned to the podcast we love.